Hello and welcome to An Idol Called Food. I'm your host, JT Tapias, and in today's episode, we're gonna talk about that interesting thing that so many people have a challenge with, discipline. Before we go there, I'd like to speak with you about EYBPlanFuel.com, supplements that make a significant difference on your way to getting healthy. Go to EYBPlanFuel.com, get your supplements today, and get started on this health journey ASAP. All right, let's jump into it. A systematic approach to discipline. Proverbs 24:33-34 says that a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. This proverb couldn't have said it any better. I mean, literally, it is what happens to people when they simply decide, hey, discipline is not for me, it's too hard, I've tried this, I've tried that, it hasn't worked, and they just leave it aside. And this proverb is saying that it will take you like an armed man at night and just take everything you have. Right? And so we don't want that to happen. I think it's important to understand what discipline truly is. And the Webster Dictionary describes discipline in a couple of different ways that are kind of confusing, but at the same time interesting. It says, number one, it says control gained by enforcing obedience and order. Number two, orderly or prescribed conduct of pattern or behavior. Number three, self-control. Number four, training that corrects, bolts, or perfects the mental faculty of moral character. And then lastly, it says a field of study. I think these definitions are fine, but I think they're incomplete and they're not necessarily impactful. I want to give you some definitions that I believe are super efficient and impactful, and hopefully will get you to change this whole idea that you're not disciplined, because I don't believe there is such thing. In other words, that person is disciplined and this person isn't. I don't believe in such thing. And so one of my favorite definitions of discipline is the distance between where you are now and where you want to go. Number two, the rocket fuel that moves you forward even when you don't want to, right? This is the thing that gets you going even when you don't want to. Number three, the thing that you want to do that you know that you should do, right? But you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway, right? That's discipline. And the thing that you do regardless of what your emotions inform you of, right? That's a good one. And my very last one, and by far my favorite definition, is repeatable habits that are scheduled. This is what we're going to talk about, and this is how we can systematically bring discipline into your life. So I'm going to give you the ABCs, okay? Grab a pen, grab a paper, put your seatbelt on, because if you actually follow this, this is going to catapult your results like never before. Okay, so first and foremost, I think it's important to frame this with a story, right? So when I was a kid, I was kind of a weird, crazy, disciplined kid. And I have to say, I was pre-genetically disposed to discipline. I had a poster of Bruce Lee in my room. I wanted to be like the guy. He had a six-pack, I wanted a six-pack. So of course I would skip out on the sweets and the treats and all of those things. I joined the martial arts dojo. I used to go every day. My gi was nice and clean, and I trained hard, and I was a kid, right? I also had religious inclinations at a young age, even though I didn't grow up in a church-going home. No one in my house went to church, no one in my house prayed, and yet there you would see me right at the edge of the bed, on my knees, praying to God. And my mom would always wonder, like, where does this kid get this from, right? I had the ability to save money. I used to do chores around the house, and they used to give me money, and I used to have lots of money because I could save lots of money. And I'm talking 7, 8, 9 years old. I knew how to save money by that time. I then started my soccer career, and some of you guys know my story. By the age of 17, I went off to Europe and I played competitively. Things went incredibly well because of that discipline and that follow through that I had. And then I went into my entrepreneur career, and I wanted to just, absorb everything that the business world had to offer. I implemented some of those things and I experienced success. Once again, I showed discipline there. And then of course, the major event in my life at the age of 33, I become a Christian, and I literally go from night to day. I mean, it was a radical change. I devoured my Bible many times over. I used to pray, used to fast more than most of the cradle Christians that have been in church all their lives. I don't say that pridefully. I just say to show you that for some reason I had this pre-genetic disposition, and it worked really, really well, and it catapulted my results in all areas. And I want to teach you how to do that, even if you don't believe that you are pre-genetically disposed to being disciplined. Okay, so I think the most important thing, a systematic approach it starts off by knowing what do I want, right? Clarity. And this is something we all do really, really well, especially around January. Most people, will have all these goals. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get married. I want to scale my business. Whatever it is your goal is, most people don't have a problem figuring that part out. That for most people is pretty straightforward. The thing is, most people don't understand, don't do the work to just understand their goal, but why they truly want that goal. Like digging deeper and finding the motivation and the fuel to intrinsically understand why they want that thing that they want. Some people say, I want to lose 20 pounds, and that's a good thing. You want to get healthy, and that's a good thing. But there's a deeper meaning to that. What does that really mean to you? And doing that work, that introspection, getting very clear and figuring that out is what gives you the motivation and the fuel to move forward. Then once you have that, you have to figure out what do I need to do, right? How do I apply this? What's the strategy? And of course, when it comes to nutrition, there is a plethora of options out there. And you probably pick macro counting, calorie counting, point counting, Atkins, Keto, South Beach, any of these programs. And if you do them, they work. The problem is most of them are not very sustainable for the long term. And what happens is, because there's no sustainability in it, you guys get upset because you hit that metric that you were chasing. And since it was a superficial goal, because a metric never keeps anyone inside of a sustainable lifestyle plan, then you backtrack, and then now you go and you blame discipline, and you blame the program, and you blame the coach. But none of that has to do with it. It was simply that when you were setting up your discipline, aka habits, you failed in having a systematic approach to it, right? And then lastly, inside of that breakdown of getting very clear, understanding your motivation, applying the right strategy, finding the intrinsic why that's going to keep you there, you need to find something that's going to remind you daily of the goal you're after, because we are very fickle in our thoughts, right? Today we want something, tomorrow we forget, then we think about it 2 weeks later, we haven't done the things and we fail. So we need to figure out how do we remember this thing all the time? And so we need a clear goal. Once we have that goal, we need habits, aka the habits that are going to bring that particular goal to fruition. Those things we do on a daily basis that are going to bring that thing to fruition. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, has a beautiful saying, and it says this. It says, "We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems," meaning that no matter how lofty your goals are, no matter how big and motivating your goals are, if you don't have systems in place, you're going to fail, right? So it's not a discipline issue, it is a strategy issue, okay? So we need to figure out the strategy. So what do we need to create systems, aka habits? Well, I'm going to give you 3 steps that I believe are pivotal, right? And you know the old adage, out of sight, out of mind. Well, the opposite of that is true. And so the first thing we need to do when we want to create a good habit is that we need to make it visible, okay? We need to see it every single day, to be reminded, to know that that's what we're doing, to redirect our brain. We need to create visual cues. So that means booby trapping your entire house, right? From your fridge, making sure you're putting your meals up front, to your sneakers by the door so you're reminded to physically move every day, to getting the devil out of the house, anything that is tempting. If you live with people and you can't do that, and they eat, junk food, then make sure you hide it and have a conversation with them and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Can you help me by not tempting me eating these things? And they may or may not cooperate, but at least you're having that conversation. And in having that conversation, it's easier to create visual cues that are going to support you on your way to your goal. Number 2, you need to make it easy. If you have to do cardio 3 days a week, okay? And every single time you have to get in your car and you have to go to the gym and you have to park and you have to walk into the gym and you have to register with your little card, and now you got to go in there and try to figure out what you're going to do. You'll probably do that a couple of times, but it's easier to fall off if you have to do all of those things to actually get to that particular habit. So you want to make it as easy as possible. You want to buy a small treadmill, make a small investment. If you have it there, it's most likely to happen if it's easier for you to do it. This is called lowering the entry barrier. The easier it is for you to get to the habit, the easier you're going to be able to replicate that habit day after day. And number 4, you need to make it fun, because the brain loves dopamine. So we need to find healthy channels to secrete dopamine versus how we are used to secreting dopamine, which is generally through junk food and alcohol and drugs and cigarettes and all the crazy vices that break us. So we need to make something fun. Whatever that physical activity is for you that you enjoy, rollerblading, you can do dodgeball. I don't know. You want to move, right, in a way that is enjoyable so that you can tell your brain to do it day after day, because the brain will repeat things that it enjoys. I know that's very simplistic, and I'm sorry for being that simple, that simple advice, but that is what it takes, okay? And so we need to make it visible, we need to make it easy, and we need to make it fun. Let me give you some pillars if you're looking to get in shape. If you're looking to lose unwanted weight and decrease unwanted body fat, then here's what I believe you need to do. 3 days a week, you need to walk a 3 to a 5K power walk. Okay, now if that's exaggerated for you and it's like, oh man, that's too much, start off small. Start off with 1K, but build your way up to 3 to 5K, a minimum of 3 days a week. The more the merrier. Walking has very little impact on your joints. You don't have to recover from it. And it is one of the most efficient ways to decrease body fat percentages and lose unwanted weight in record time. You need to prep your meals. People that do really well on our programs are people that take 90 minutes a week to prep their meals Monday through Wednesday, and then some extra time Wednesday through Saturday and have meals on deck. You're gonna save money. It's gonna be easier for you to get to the meals. You've made a time investment, you made a financial investment, and that also pushes you in the direction of getting those things done. I also wanna say that you need micro goals, daily goals, things to achieve daily, weekly, monthly, right, quarterly, annually. Micro goals are little goals on your way to the bigger goal. Start off with daily goals and move on to weekly goals. And if you can do that, and you can say, for example, from a metric perspective, this week, I want to lose 3 pounds. And based on that particular goal, you create all the habits that are going to get you there. Like I just mentioned, the walks, the meal preps, the micro goal, all those things, right? You want to set alarms. If you're not setting alarms, you're going to forget to eat, you're going to forget to do your cardio, you're going to forget everything because we are busy. So you want to make sure that you're setting alarms that remind you of the things that you need to do. Once again, I want to emphasize the idea that I already talked about. You need to booby trap your house, out of sight, out of mind, right? So you want to make sure things are very obvious. If you want to drink a gallon of water, buy a gallon of water, put it by your computer, so every time you look at that gallon, you're reminded to drink water. You want to make sure that in the face of temptation, you're actually praying. Now, most nutrition coaches wouldn't talk to you about this, but since I'm a man of faith, I'm not going to leave it out because I think it's an important thing, right? The Bible says that if your eyes are healthy, your body is healthy. Because temptation oftentimes comes in through the eyes. We get cued in through our eyes. We see the donut, the pizza, the things that we know we shouldn't eat. We start to romanticize those things in our head, and next thing we know, right, we're falling for that temptation. So number one, don't look at those things very long. Number two, when you see them and you get tempted, pray about it, and you're gonna see that it's gonna neutralize the power that donut, pizza, burger has over you. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And last but not least, you need accountability around these things. Not your spouse, not your family member, not your friend. I mean, that's okay, but that's not gonna last very long because you're familiar with these people, right? You're close to these people. You need a third-party, unbiased accountability person. And more importantly, when we pay attention. Pay for something that is not cheap, that it hurts. It's an investment that you're like, man, I better make the most out of this. And it's little things like that that are really gonna push you forward and make you disciplined. I wanna remind you that discipline hinges on, oftentimes on accountability, but the truth is you aren't held accountable by your coach. You must make sure, right, that you're accountable to yourself. There's a huge difference between a coach holding you accountable and you holding yourself accountable. You have to take ownership over your goals. No one cares about your goals more than you do. So sure, you can hire someone to keep you accountable to remind you, but at the end of the day, you spend more time with yourself, you speak more to yourself than that coach is ever gonna speak to you. So you have to have an extra level of accountability within that says, I'm gonna take ownership of my life, I'm gonna make sure that I take responsibility for my outcomes, and yes, this person is helping me, but I am gonna be a bigger, more motivating voice in my own head because once again, we speak to ourselves more than anyone else speaks to us. So we have a greater influence over ourselves than anyone else. Last but not least, I think I've proven here that discipline is not a pre-genetic disposition, but instead something that you can incorporate into your life. Do me a favor, if this was like drinking out of a water hydrant, a fire hydrant, do me a favor and go back and watch this video with a piece of paper and pen, okay? Jot everything down, and if you apply these things, I know that you're going to bring your goals to fruition, you're gonna be disciplined, you're gonna be fulfilled, there's gonna be joy in your life, there's gonna be success, and you're gonna leave a huge impact for those that you love. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode. My name is JT Tapias with an idol called food. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.